Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, our diversely and amazingly accomplished guests share their insights and inspirations to help us ignite our own. So let's invest attention together to breathe, to reflect and refocus, and decisively defeat that voice we call Mr. Mediocrity. Then let's enjoy moving forward to make a positive difference in our world.
Hello, welcome to the Action Catalyst. Today we have an awesome and exciting guest, Mr. Mark Briggs. He is an author and consultant who helps Fortune 500 companies modernize their operations, culture, and leadership with cutting-edge transformation. Mark has worked with groups across the United States, Europe, China, and the Middle East. He's the author of 3 books, including his newest, The Butterfly Impact. Welcome to the Action Catalyst, Mark.
It's great to be here.
Man, let's just hop right into it. Your newest book, The Butterfly Impact, and I love that name.
Yeah, The Butterfly Impact is just a concept that I landed on as I was putting together a series of lessons and takeaways and tactics and suggestions that I was giving my clients when the pandemic hit in March of 2020. It was all of a sudden a time of upheaval and disruption in everybody's lives. And, my clients were needing to reassure their teams and their staff that, they could muster the resilience and be adaptable, and not just make it through this challenge and this chaos, but actually find ways to take advantage of the opportunity and this forced change to improve as organizations, as teams, and even with, team culture, which has really been one of the silver linings, I think, of the pandemic. Is there's been so much more attention on culture and work-life boundaries and the well-being of our employees as we expect them to show up at work, given all of the work-life blending challenges that have come with the pandemic. So, I really thought, as I looked at what I can provide for people based on some of the challenges that I've gone through in my own life, but then also starting to interview other people, what I discovered was not one big flip the light switch and have this change happen. It was a series of very small incremental changes that people could try to implement into their lives to find this work-life blending well-being that was so needed. And so when I thought about small changes having a potentially big impact, of course, I was drawn to the concept of the butterfly effect. But that, of course, is based in chaos theory. And the essential element to that is you can't control it, but it can, describe the way a small change down the line can have a big impact. And when I looked at what I was noticing from people that I was interviewing and my clients and their work and what I had gone through is that a series of very small changes, if you're intentional about them, can have an outsized impact on everyone around you.
I know that you interviewed over 100 people in the prime of their career, and it included people at Starbucks and Facebook, Google, Amazon, the Gates Foundation, Good Morning America, and more. So as you interviewed over 100 people from these world-shaping businesses, what were some common threads? What were interesting or surprising elements of those interviews?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was how most of the individuals that felt like they were in control are the kind of people who have a certain ability to change well. As Benjamin Franklin famously said, change is inevitable, progress is optional. So as we deal with change in our organizations, on our teams, at home, in our personal lives through things like pandemics, we know change is going to happen to us. So it's, what do you do with that change? Is it an opportunity to find a better way to have the impact or to achieve the goal that you wanted before? But knowing that you're going to have to change, how can you make the most of it and actually enjoy it? I wrote a whole chapter about play because I think the power of play is so important in not only the working world, but just in our lives. Organizations, they're super adaptable because they are motivated by play and purpose and potential. And so if you see change opportunities as an opportunity to play, to experiment, and to learn, that gives you a whole different, sort of view on change. Instead of it being thrust upon you and something to be afraid of and something that's going to, stress you out, you actually look at it as an opportunity to go in the sandbox, go in the laboratory, and figure out, is there a better way to get here? If you watch a 5-year-old at a water table, playing with a ball or rubber duck, and trying to figure out, is it going to float? Is it going to sink? Is it going to go down the bridge? That's play, but that's learning. It's discovery. It's experimentation. And we don't have a word for that in the adult world that we live in, right? If you're doing that at work, you can't call it play, because in our culture, play is the opposite of work. But in fact, the people that I talk to that I think are flourishing in what they're doing, both at work and at home, just view their everyday life as play, a chance to experiment and learn and have an impact on the people around them.
I love that. When what you do is your passion, people shouldn't be able to tell the difference between if you're working or playing. So true. I know you talk a lot about balance and how it is between your personal life and your work life. What are some takeaways and how-tos out of that?
One of the surprises that everyone got in March of 2020, right, was this new world that we all of a sudden had to navigate. And a lot of people were forced to work from home for the first time. And so without really thinking through what that was going to do to their personal life, to their family life, to their home life, they just set up their computers, turned on Zoom, and kind of kept going. But what really has turned out to be required is more thought and more intention around how do we set up boundaries between work and life to create that space that we need. And so I talk to people who have struggled with, that transition that used to come in the form of a commute. And so they'd have time to process what had happened at work. Maybe it was a stressful call that ended their day, and they had some time to process that before they entered their home life or whatever their life was outside of work. And now working from home, they're just walking down the hall or down the stairs from their office and taking that stress and bringing it into their home life. And that just creates negative energy that's just going to continue to snowball, unfortunately. And so what's really been important for people as they're trying to achieve work-life well-being, really, because I'm not sure there's a balance. I think there's been a lot of talk lately about, can you really have a balance? I'm not sure that's exactly the goal. Somehow there's got to be a harmony and integration to this situation of work-life blending. And so creating space in the morning is one of the things that I definitely heard over and over again from people who felt like they were flourishing with what they were up against. Put your own oxygen mask on first, take care of yourself. Then you can take care of the people around you outside of work. And then you're going to show up as a better partner and teammate at work. And then that's going to turn into showing up as a better partner, spouse, parent, uncle, aunt, friend, whatever your role is after work.
That's great. If you were to talk, let's say for our listeners here on the Action Catalyst, let's say that you are a leader of leaders, like a CEO type of person. What ideas would you have for the ultra producer on how to do that?
That's a conversation that I'm having frequently lately, where, the burnout and the overwhelm, it has really reached peak levels. And so working with leaders, I think the most important thing that I've identified is that they have to actually start doing a better job of walking the walk. I think a lot of them have told their staffs and their teams that they need to have boundaries, take time for themselves, take vacations, take lunch breaks, whatever it is. But then they don't do it themselves. And so we all know that in an organization, if the team doesn't see the leader taking a break, taking vacation, taking a lunch, they're not going to do that either. They're just going to follow whatever the path and the performance and the behavior is of the leader above them. So I think it's really important for leaders right now to not only deliver a message that, hey, your work has meaning, that what you're doing is making an impact to our team and to our organization and to our customers or our clients or our audience, whatever the situation may be. But really, it's most important for them to also then demonstrate and lead by example in terms of finding that work-life balance and not expecting, this, kind of cult of busy to continue to perpetuate.
So your career in journalism started off with a different focus. How did you get from sports writing to where you are today?
Yeah, it's not a straight line, I can tell you that. I originally wanted to be a high school football coach. When I got to college, I didn't know what I would want to teach in high school so that I could be a football coach. I ended up in a journalism class and really just immediately fell in love with the idea of going out and reporting information and sharing something that I had learned about a news story. And so combined that with my love of sports at the time and thought, I'll just be a sports writer and I can cover sports. And So I did that for about a year and then quickly realized that it didn't work with my personality because sports is very predictable because, as you know, football season, then basketball season, then baseball season, and then all over again. And I needed something a lot more unpredictable. Apparently, I love change. And so got a master's degree so I could teach in college is what I thought my new plan was going to be. And about that time, this little thing called the internet came along and disrupted all of the news industry and journalism. And I thought, well, that's where I want to be. I don't know what the future is. Nobody did at the time. This was around the year 2000. I said, but I want to go help people figure that out. And so that's what I've spent the last 20 plus years doing is helping news organizations of one size or another try to sort through the changes that have been thrown upon them from technology and the way the audiences have changed. And so really for me, it's always been about innovation and like trying to find a better way to do whatever it is. And so that ended up leading me to a job as a consultant with Smith Geiger, which I've had since 2017 and working with organizations on modernization projects and change management and change leadership. And really, it's just about, hey, we're all going to face this disruption and this change. How do we take advantage of it and improve our team and ourselves and improve the impact we have on our customers and our audience, which led to, this book, because really this is about innovation in your life. It's really about innovating your life and experimenting and finding better ways to do what you do so that you can make the biggest impact in your professional and personal life.
Tell us about the difference between teaching in a college setting and then teaching in a corporate setting. You are a professor of leadership and change management at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and you're teaching leadership in digital media economics. What does that even mean? How does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting that title of the course that I teach is a little maybe outdated, but the point of the course is really about how do you help a media organization navigate through this change. And it is actually for mid-career professionals. So it's very similar to the work that I do in my day job as a consultant. And what we do is we go through a number of interesting books. We have a really robust discussion online because it's a virtual class, but it's all focused on, similar themes on how do you organize your team and your priorities to take advantage of the changes that have been forced upon you. And first, in a strategic way, right? It's what is the business model opportunity? What's the audience opportunity, the marketing opportunity? But then how do we get our team to be able to execute that, which means, training, and it means different organizational structures, and it means different types of communication. And so I've taken what I've learned from helping clients in my Smith Geiger job, kind of take everything apart and put it back together in a much more modern, efficient, and effective way. And then I'm able to use those lessons and those experiences to help my students at the University of North Carolina as they're navigating their day jobs, because they all have day jobs too. And they don't all come from media or news organizations. We've had students from a wide variety of companies and big corporations, but it turns out change is everywhere. You don't get to avoid it, I don't think, in any industry. At least there's not one that I'm aware of.
What are you seeing as the biggest opportunities when you look at this data and you're advising people? What are the low-hanging fruit that is, as you would say, the change that's being forced upon us? Where's the win? Where's the silver lining? Maybe from an investment standpoint, what are the things that people could take advantage of and look at right now?
That's a tough question because there's just so much upheaval right now. Forecasting, I think, has become almost irrelevant. I know that when I started my career, it was common for organizations to do a 5-year plan, and then all of a sudden it became a 3-year plan. And, now organizations are hard pressed to do a 1-year plan. I think most of us who go back and visit what we thought this year was going to look like would have been very wrong. So I honestly don't know how far you can forecast the change, and therefore how far can you actually point, your ship in terms of the direction you're heading in. So it's more about what I see right now is taking advantage of the opportunities through digital technology and digital communication to really upskill everybody in your organization. And I think the one common denominator I see in almost every organization right now is this need to really upskill and provide training and that professional development to retain the great people you already have and to recruit the great people you're going to need to, navigate the change that you can't even see. So I do think that it's about people right now. If I was going to, put my poker chip on a square, it would be keep the people that you want, that you need right now, and find a way to recruit the people you need. Because in all the industries that I'm aware of and the people that I'm talking to now, recruiting or retention seems to be front and center for everyone.
Yeah, it sure is. I would agree. You build people and those people build great companies.
Right. Exactly.
Now, anything else with the butterfly impact that you think listeners would find interesting? And what would be the 30-second overview of why someone should get this book?
The 30-second overview. I think, to me anyway, what I tried to do was collect enough tips and tactics and approaches that are small enough that anyone can try at least a few of them. And I don't think anyone can do all of them, but I like to say that we don't all have the same owner's manual. And so what's going to work for you, Dustin, is not necessarily going to work for me. But what I've done here is collected through the research, the interviews, and my own life experience, some pretty practical and easily adaptable, or at least in an experimental way, ideas and approaches that can make at least a small difference tomorrow for anyone who picks up the book. You can try one thing or two things, implement those, and then move on to the next couple of things. I think one of the areas that really stood out for me was how many of the people that I interviewed, do something really smart with their mornings. And there's a lot of research out here. There's a lot of books like The Miracle Morning. There's a lot of great advice around how to structure your morning to get yourself set up for the rest of the day. And so just even taking that one little part of every day and coming up with a system and a routine that you can repeat easily and that creates the best version of you to enter the game of life and business is one of those, I think, investments that pays huge dividends, and really anybody can do it.
That is awesome, Mark. And how can people get hold of you? What's the best way to reach you and hear more about this?
My website for the book is butterfly-impact.com. And obviously the book is available on Amazon if you want to pick up a copy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on the Action Catalyst. We appreciate it. This was such a pleasure talking with you here today.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. To stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and Twitter at Catalyst_Action. Thanks for listening.